What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Andrew Cooper here, Alarm Fantasy Football. As you can see, no Howard Bender. No Howard Bender today. He's off doing boring baseball stuff. So we get to do an Andrew Cooper show with one of my very favorite guests. And I'll tell you what, people, I've been playing this game, FastDraft. You can see it on the hat there. I played last year. I didn't write any articles last year because I wanted to get a feel for the game, see how it played out. This year, I'm writing some articles, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do a FastDraft show. I'm thinking to myself, I know the guy. I know the guy who brought FastDraft to everyone. So why not bring him on here, Mr. Matt Kelley, the pod father himself, and the FastDraft father. Matt, how you doing, brother?
FastDraft father. That's good. That's really good. By the way, after that introduction, that music at the beginning, oh my God, I'm going to run through this camera.
It gets you going, dude. It gets you fired up. Yeah, the faces, the football. It's a lot. It's a lot of watching. Oh yeah, dude. Well, I know you're the intro master, man. You pump the tires big time, and I will say I'm always pumping your tires because people might not realize I've only had you on here a couple times, I think, but I wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't for you. No awards, no articles, no shows, no nothing, man. Listening to you and Nate Liss and the gang that you built over there on the Roto Underworld, that's when I realized that like this doesn't have to be boring. Like it can be fun. We can talk about whatever we want. We can, you know what I mean? Like we can go crazy. You don't have to, a podcast doesn't have to be four guys sitting around going, do you like this player? Yes, no, maybe, I don't know. Like we can have fun and we can talk about whatever we want. So today we're going to talk about FastDraft. But I just want to say once again, man, thanks for everything you do and thanks for coming on, brother. Because there's no Coop without the brunch father, the pod father, the FastDraft father.
Fantasy football is really fun, isn't it?
It's true.
I think the beauty of fantasy football is there's just enough strategy that everyone can play, but it's not just this mindless. I'm going to pick these guys and I'm going to play these guys because I have a good feeling about these guys or whatever. There's team building strategy. There's player takes. There's a level of competency. So generally speaking, in most fantasy leagues, the best players win. Year in, year out, the best guys are making the playoffs every year, but then you're never sure who's going to win, right? There's usually a rotation of guys that are winning the championship every year. And, but it's so much fun that those that aren't winning, that don't quite have it, they're still coming back for more because the draft is so fun. The in-season engagement with your league mates, so fun. And that's why we built FastDraft, was because there was this direction that things were going where all the innovation was headed towards some form of gambling, whether it would be pick'ems or whether it be over-unders or whatever it was. And I thought, well, there has to be a game for the next generation that they will engage with that is fast-paced enough, that is easy enough, but still gives a strategy, still is a lot. It's still fantasy. It's still fantasy football.
Exactly.
So that's what FastDraft is. That was the original conceit of FastDraft, was essentially let's take fantasy to the next level for the next generation, and let's not let this thing just wilt on the vine. Let's blow it out. And so I think what we've done with FastDraft is sort of the best of DraftKings, the best of Underdog, the best of Prize Picks, all the elements that people like about different types of fantasy, you will find with FastDraft, where you are building teams, but the drafts take 5 minutes instead of 50 minutes. Where there is strategy, but it's not like you don't have to memorize week 17 schedules.
Exactly.
Right? So I think it's the right level of complexity and necessary strategy to be successful, that all, say, 50 million fantasy gamers that are in a league of some kind can play and enjoy. And yet still there is some edge for those that really know what they're doing.
Exactly. It's like fantasy football. The more I think about it, is in a lot of ways like poker, right? Where it's like anyone can technically win, but the more you study the game, the more you learn about it, the better edge you give yourselves, right? And a lot of the fun is still just like fantasy, in when the cards get flipped over, because anything can happen. Just like on Sunday, anything can happen, right? But when I think about like big long poker tournaments, that's a slog. Even when I go to the casino as a guy that likes playing poker, I don't find myself sitting down to play 3 hours of poker. Just like a lot of times people don't want to sit down and do these big long fantasy drafts, especially in May. You don't want to do drafts where you're sitting down for over an hour and then you're have waivers and you have trades and you have all that. That's why FastDraft is great. You sit down, bing bang boom, in out, get 6 core guys, and that does help the casual gamer to some degree that there's only 6 guys being drafted. But on the flip side, right? If you are in the know and you really know those guys that are going outside the range and you can reach down lower, then you can give yourself an advantage. I mean, and I love that you guys built in the rostership numbers because that really is key to like getting unique. Tell people a little bit about how they can use those numbers on there because it actually tells you right on the app. Okay, Ashton Genty's he's been drafted in 100% of drafts. But as you go down, you start seeing, okay, this guy's drafted in 40. There's a couple guys that are, they're being drafted in 2% of drafts. I like to scroll down and look. I'm like, who's drafting this guy? Who is some sharp out there drafting this guy in all his drafts? And am I missing out? It's kind of cool.
Right. 0.8% owned Josh Downs.
Right.
Those kinds of things. Yeah, that's what you're looking for. You're looking for that. So just to level set for everybody, the Flex-4 game is you draft any 6 running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, and then it's best ball. It's for the full season. So the top 4 enter your lineup every week. And FastDraft certainly has DFS games that are weekly, and those will be fun when the season starts. But for now, there's these best ball games. There's an all defense best ball game, similar concept, draft 6 defenders, top 4 enter your lineup every week. And for Dynasty fans, there's an all rookie game where you draft 6 rookies, and the top 4 rookies every week enter your lineup. And so that one is particularly popular right now on the app, but also the Flex-4 game's always popular. And what you're talking about is when you get to round 6, and it's based on 10-team leagues. So it's a 10-team league tournament. So there's all the drafts happen with groups of 10 teams, and then it aggregates out once the season starts. It's a total points based tournament. So we look at all the teams and all their performances, and there's a $50,000 prize pool, $10,000 to first. And again, the investment isn't an hour of your time. The investment is 7 minutes of your time to build a team. And when you get to round 6, generally speaking, that's the round where you want to try to get creative. Just going with the next ADP guy in round 6 is probably not the right move. And that's why you listen to shows like this, so you can get a little bit of edge in all these types of games. And so what you want to do there is look for guys that if things break their way, it could be really good, like a guy like Jawan Jennings, for example. We know that the 49ers offense is going to be pass heavy this year. They just signed up Brock Purdy as their franchise quarterback with a big new contract extension. The defense has been hollowed out the last couple of years, and they're going to have to throw to be competitive. We know that. And they lost Deebo Samuel. So there's been target consolidation, and there hasn't been a big change in what we believe the game scripts are going to be. It's going to be a lot of come from behind. It's going to be a lot of high scoring games. And Brock Purdy is a great deliverer of accurate footballs. So you want exposure in fantasy football to the 49ers, in particular, the 49ers receivers, whether it be Kittle, whether it be Ayuk, whether it be Jennings. I prefer Jennings. Jennings has both the highest floor and the highest ceiling, in that he has the most TD equity of all these players because he's the biggest, and he's probably the most likely red zone target. He's also got the highest snap share. He's the most stable in terms of he doesn't have an injury history to worry about. He's a wily veteran who's one of the best blocking wide receivers in the league in the context of that offense. You just know he's going to be on the field. So he has that upside. He has that TD upside in particular, but he also, he has the floor because he's going to be on the field. So if I'm making a choice of those 3 guys, see, none of those 3, whether it be Pearsall or Ayuk or Jennings, of the 3 receivers that we project to start in 3 receiver sets, none of them are 100% owned in FastDraft. And all of them are like below 50%. It's just that Jennings is like 30%. And Pearsall is like 30%. and Ayuk might be sub 10%. Ayuk has more risk because he's coming back from injury, and there's, internal conflict with him and Shanahan, but the upside with Ayuk is the highest. So that's interesting in that,
right.
There's nice upside with all three. The most is Ayuk, but is it worth it to potentially take zeros when you could get Jennings? I don't think it is, but that's a debate. And if you're going to say, I'm just going to get a 49ers receiver here, I can't argue with that.
Right. And we talk about it all the time on the show, like what creates upside, right? And in certain instances, like the 49ers, we've mentioned a million times, if you're going to have fullbacks on the field, like Kyle Juszczyk, if you're going to have blocking tight ends like Luke Farrell, and in the past, Eric Saubert and Charlie Warner, these guys aren't soaking up targets. It highly consolidates the targets at the top. And for a game like this, the Origins rookie draft, you can be a little more unique, get a little crazier because there's so much uncertainty with rookies. With a game like this, you need true upside. And a little later on the show, we'll go over the team that won this tournament last year and kind of what they did, and you'll see what kind of players it takes. But as Matt's pointing out, you need true big time upside. Juwan Jennings could be the number one target for a highly consolidated offense that's going to have to throw more than they ever have. I mean, that's the kind of player you're looking with the last picks. Now,
but there's also fake upside too.
Of course,
you want to avoid the fake upside, like DK Metcalf. I mean, that is the fakest of upside. Well, it's not the fakest upside. I think the fakest upside is probably Jerry Jeudy, where you're talking about players that are on bad teams, where we either don't know who the quarterback is, or we know that quarterback is definitively dust. We're sure Flacco's dust. We're not sure if Aaron Rodgers is even going to be on the team and whether or not he's dust or not.
Right.
Either way, these teams are not scoring a lot of touchdowns, not a lot of touchdown equity to go around. These teams are not going to play fast. They're not going to have a lot of volume overall. I know that the Browns did have a lot of pass volume in previous couple of years, but they just invested heavily in the running game. So a player who is either not playing well, had a sort of a downtrending year again, like, so 4 straight downtrend years like DK Metcalf, or a player that had like a random sort of unsustainable spurt last year like Jerry Jeudy. These are not the type of guys that you look to for upside. You're looking for players that could have huge roles on really good offenses, and they are available in round 6. It's just, you don't want to be looking in the Browns bin or the Steelers bin for these players.
Right. And when you're looking for teams that threw for high volume last year, like, you got to ask yourself, can they repeat it? The Browns have the most pass attempts of any team last year, and it's because Joe Flacco has no interest in doing anything except catching the ball and throwing it right away. Like, you look through the teams, the Browns probably not going to repeat. The Bengals, who were second, maybe, right? Like, maybe
they even draft a defensive back. We knew that was one of their great need areas. And the audacity of the Bengals to go into that draft, they had the worst draft because they went into it, they needed defensive back help more than almost any other team, and they came out with 2 linebackers. It's okay, wait a second. This isn't the problem. Your problem isn't teams running against you. What are you doing?
These teams, the 3 teams that have the oldest, longest tenured GMs continuously just bring Swiss cheese teams to the table, right?
It's crazy.
2 of them are owners of the team, right? With the Bengals and obviously Jerry Jones. But Mickey Loomis, how is Mickey Loomis not getting fired? Like, these guys that have been, the things that worked 20 years ago are clearly not working. So I truly do not understand these teams. But hey, you know what? What the Bengals did is great for fantasy football.
But that's why you want T. Higgins, because you can easily project Burrow, Chase, Higgins to be right back at it. If you want, I mean, it's a rare thing that the team that had all the dials turned up the previous year on offense repeats. We know that, just because usually that's a moment in time because the defense was dismantled for whatever reason. They happen to be have a schedule where they were in a lot of shootouts. It has to be moon and the stars aligning for something like that, where Joe Burrow is first in all these passing categories. But if it's going to happen again, it's going to happen again in Cincinnati.
Exactly.
And that's why I want, either Chase or Higgins. The problem is Chase goes like at the 101 on FastDraft. Higgins is very available and a guy I'm trying to get whenever I can. If I were drafting, of course I can. But I can do the mock drafts, right?
Yeah, and
And
share your secrets with us. That's why I brought you on.
yeah, and I
You
could do
can't play,
so
but
when I'm doing the mock drafts on the platform, I'm always looking at where's T Higgins going, because he's right there in the early third round. Okay. And he's going, in that Lad McConkey, Jackson Smith and Jigba, that area, Mike Evans, players like that, Tyreek Hill. Give me T Higgins over those guys all day. Now, the one thing that you don't want to do, which is also interesting, is you on a platform where you can draft 6 receivers, you can draft 6 running backs, and there's no position restrictions. You generally don't want 2 players on the same team.
right.
You're betting on, when you're betting on Josh Jacobs, you're betting on the Packers being run heavy. Okay. So you probably don't want any other Packers players. Right? When you're betting on Breece Hall, you probably aren't also betting on Garrett Wilson, because you want the touchdowns to skew towards Hall, right? The only case I think that I've been able to find where I think it's there's no downside to taking 2 guys on the same team would be Chase Brown and Jamar Chase, or Chase Brown and T Higgins, because there's so many points to be scored in Cincinnati that the number 1 running back and one of the 2 receivers, the whatever negative correlation there is between them is overcome and more by just the raw offensive volume.
Yeah, and let me take a second right now to bring up last year's winner to give people an idea of what you need in a format like this. Because with the other ones, the 18 team rosters, the 20 team rosters on FFPC, you can kind of build a room where you're scraping by, and you're just kind of hitting certain correlations, and even my team last year that made it to day, the last day, I had like Hunter Henry and Pat Fryermuth. You don't need the pure top guys in a contest like this. You're trying to sit down and say, okay, I'm taking 6 stabs at guys that I think can legitimately be top 10, top 12 in all of fantasy. Like when you go to the whatever sites that has the data, Fantasy Alarm, and you click flex and look at last year's scoring, you need guys from the very, very top. So what Matt's basically saying is that, like, if you think Jamar Chase and Chase Brown can both be top 10 flex players scoring like 350, 400 points, then go for both of them. But it's very rare for that to happen. You need like an Alvin Kamara, Michael Thomas type season. So
Yeah,
this
that was another case, and that was one of the top scoring teams in the league. All the opportunities were consolidated.
yes.
That is what I'm talking about. But we're talking about 1 or 2 teams where you would ever even entertain that at all.
Right. Chat. Well, what do you guys think, though? There could be a couple teams out there. I mean, the Bengals are an example where it's very highly consolidated. And again, the problem with some of the highly consolidated teams is that it's high consolidation because the offenses are not built, right? Like you can look at the Jets and say, oh yeah, it's Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall,
Yeah,
but
but now you have 2 Jets. That's a
now
problem.
you have 2 Jets. Exactly.
No,
So
you don't want to do that. Yeah,
it's
the
so
other
hard.
case, actually, I have another one. I found another one. Henry and Flowers
Okay.
works.
Yeah.
Because again, you have the player who is hogging the vast majority of the running production other than Lamar Jackson. And then you have a player who is the clear target dominator in Zay Flowers. So there, again, the opportunities are so consolidated. The offense is good enough, and they're going to be playing the Bengals twice. So there's a bunch of reasons why Henry and Flowers would certainly work. You could argue Barkley and AJ Brown works, but in general, across the board, in all formats, I'm talking about FastDraft, talking about Underdog, FFPC. Generally, I've seen AJ Brown is just overrated because they're even tush push or not, this is a run focused team.
Right.
The run volume, the defense is so good, and the running game is such a focus point for this team. And there's 2 good receivers in AJ Brown and Devontae Smith. So I don't understand the like at Player Profiler. There's where the analytics are ranking guys like AJ Brown and Devontae Smith can be up to like 10 spots below where they're going in these big best ball leagues.
The team
and
was,
even on FastDraft, like if it were me, I probably wouldn't be considering them just because I know that the dynamics of that offense are such that it's going to be it's very difficult for AJ Brown and Devontae Smith to pay off.
yeah, the team was dead last in pass attempts last year. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, the tush push just passed for this product, because you got to think about it this way. When you're going in and you're projecting the stats for these teams, right? This is the Flex-4. It has no quarterbacks in it. If you play Origins with the rookies, that has quarterbacks. This has no quarterbacks in it, right? So it's only running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends. A rushing touchdown for the quarterback is dust in the wind for this format. So when Jalen Hurts has 12 touchdowns, no points are being scored in the Flex-4 format, right? Same with I think Josh Allen also had 12. So you got to keep that in mind when you're projecting these offenses. Like those touchdowns aren't helping anybody.
Well, in this format, though, that begs the question: at the 101, should the 101 be Barkley?
See, I mean,
not Chase, right? Jamar Chase over Barkley. The funny thing is, last year, the top teams had both Chase and Barkley,
right?
Because there were because it's 10 teams, you could get Chase in the back half of the first round and then Barkley in the first half of the second round a lot last year. And the teams that did that, they were a lot of them were near the top. There's also boosters. You can add these point boosters to it's optional. You don't have to do it. But anyone could have flipped their boosters, essentially, put Barkley in the top booster and then Jamar Chase in the second booster, and then that would have won them all the money.
Yeah.
But most of the players just kind of let it go and let it stay as the default configuration. Whoever I drafted first gets the top booster, and then there was no variance. This year, there's a lot more people playing this year. I mean, there's 10x the number of players this year. We're already close to 5,000 users on the platform. We're going to be at 10,000 by the time the season starts. So, I mean, you're not just going to be able to have a good but not great team and cash big. You're going to have to put in just that slightest bit of extra effort, which is to say, I'm going to look through my teams, and if I see two teams with the same two picks, right? So, for example, let's say if it were me, I would be taking Ashton Genty at the end of the first round every time because he goes to the 1-2 turn. I'm taking Genty every time if it's me. Okay, so let's say I'm at the 107, 108. I'm going Genty, and then let's say, later on, I'm grabbing a Jonathan Taylor, a Christian McCaffrey, a Breece Hall. Okay, so let's say I have some Genty McCaffrey teams. Well, of course, I'm going to pick one of those teams and put McCaffrey in the top booster, and then the other one I'll have Genty in the top booster, and I'll be covered.
That's why. So I wrote an article on Origins. I was going through my strategy, and in Origins, I like the idea of kind of bouncing around ADP a little bit and doing it that way. When I do my Flex-4, I feel like unique builds aren't necessarily as important as just trying to nail the chalk and do what you're saying, which is kind of tweak it via the multipliers, right? It's like
That's right.
when you look at the team that won last year, they actually could have set their first couple multipliers anywhere, as you imply. The winning team, and again, this team, the winning team, also illustrates why it's so important to be drafting throughout the summer, not just all in August and not just all now. Because when you look at this team, he had Jamar Chase, who he put a 2x multiplier on, 754 points. Saquon Barkley, 1.75, it's over 600 points. He had Derrick Henry and Josh Jacobs with his other two multipliers, absolute wagons. I think Derrick Henry was the RB1 through like the first 12 weeks of the season. And then he had Alvin Kamara, who was the RB1 through the first 6 weeks of the season with no boost. And he had Christian Watson, who got hurt. So you can actually clearly, if you had Christian Watson on the team, you can get away with having one pick that doesn't hit somewhere in there. But like,
you're not going to be able to do that again.
Yeah, this
right.
team
Do that again. I mean, these are the first movers. They were on an app where
right.
when it first came out, okay, and they were able to get away with winning a tournament with Christian Watson. Okay,
Right.
that's not going to happen again. You're going to have to do better in the 6th round this year in order to win this thing. It's not like the biggest deal, but the way to sort of implement a strategy to be unique in the Flex-4 game is to do maybe a couple tweaks of your multiplier captain's chairs, and then taking a player that's a bit underowned in the 6th round and having that player come through for you. If you just do those 2 things, you don't really have to think about going off the ADP board very far.
Right. Exactly. And then if you look at these players, here's the key thing. Jamar Chase, Saquon Barkley, Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs, those were his kind of the players' 4 top guys. Those guys all finished top 10 in scoring in this format, right?
Yeah,
And then
I got a correction from earlier. Juwan Jennings, he's only 15.5% owned.
Beautiful.
In this format. Brian Robinson is 25% owned. And Brian Robinson's going to score a hell of a lot of touchdowns.
Right. You got to go
So
through.
what are we doing here? So basically, if you have Brian Robinson and he is the highest scoring of the 6th round picks, and it's very easy to see that, forget the talent. It's just like he's had years where he was a super efficient receiver. We know he's going to be the the primary back between the tackles. He's going to be the primary touchdown scorer in the running game. And you're only competing with 25% of the other teams. So already, if Brian Robinson is smashing from the 6th round, if you drafted him there, then all of a sudden you've cut the field by 75%.
Exactly. And if he outscores, I mean, if he goes in and outscores a Christian McCaffrey, then you're surpassing that whole group of guys. You know, it's like I look at it and I say, who has unique upside? Like I'm just forgetting floor when I draft these. Who can finish as a top 10 flex player? That's the way I'm looking at it. And I'm surprised at some of the players that are getting picked at the level they're getting picked because they're safe guys. But what is exactly the upside? Like I have to ask when I look at guys like the rostership percentage for Khalil Shakir is pretty high. He goes in the top 60 players ADP. His top year is last year. He barely cracked 100 targets and he had 800 yards. Right? It's like Jacoby Myers has a rostership that's kind of in the range of like a Juwan Jennings. And the Raiders last year were top 5 in pass attempts, and he still was kind of just a guy, just a flex guy. I can't wrap my head around why people are drafting these players. But then I go on the other sites and people are drafting like Jalen McMillan and some of these guys, and I just can't understand it. So like,
there's players that are possession receivers, and you're like, this guy just doesn't have a high ceiling, and he's got quarterback uncertainty like a Jordan Addison. No, thank you.
no,
Okay, I don't understand that at all. And then Travis Hunter is sexy. Sure, he's sexy, but he's not going to have a full snap share. He's not the number 1. He's going to be a rookie. He is 31% owned. And I think that those people are they're trying to maximize upside in the wrong way. Right? There's this YOLO mode upside where I'm just going to go all sex and I'm not going to think about all of the reasons why, even if a player is super efficient, they can't score like top 10 fantasy points at the position based on all of the other forces. Like Trevor Lawrence is a problem. The offense is a problem. Certainly it's going to take a step forward, but what will his share be of that offense? As a rookie, probably not what we want it to be.
exactly.
Right?
And
I mean,
good.
things really aligned last year for like Lad McConkey in a similar ADP. But I mean, there was a path for him to be the number 1.
Exactly.
There
And
isn't that for Travis Hunter. So I just don't understand it. If you were going to go and build a case for someone, I could see a case for Roma Dunze, right? Roma Dunze, if he steps up and he becomes the number 1, but that's a pretty tall order.
right.
To overcome a DJ Moore. And we haven't seen enough from Caleb Williams to get me excited about that. I'd rather go down the board a little bit and go to a guy that has a ton of air yards, who has the offense to himself with a good quarterback like a Cortland Sutton. Not as sexy, right? It doesn't have that Travis Hunter sex appeal, but there's a lot of upside there for Cortland Sutton this year. There's a lot of upside. I hate to say it. Calvin Ridley's only 6.6% owned. I don't like Calvin Ridley, but he was top of the league in air yards. There's very little target competition there, and there was a massive quarterback upgrade. He is sort of a lightly used race car because he didn't play football early in his 20s, and he was a sort of very old rookie. You know, his whole sports career was delayed because of a sort of tumultuous childhood, and he ended up at Alabama at such a late age that he's about to turn 30, but he's a young 29-year-old. Right. From a football standpoint, from the number of hits he's taken. Like, I still think that Calvin Ridley has juice, and I've never been a fan of Calvin Ridley, but I don't hate players. I hate ADPs. His ADP has always been driven by, this is Calvin Ridley. This is the big star from the SEC in Alabama. This is the guy that was next to Julio Jones. This is, and then finally it takes him going to the Titans and playing with Will Levis to just get all that hype, like, just pounded out of him, right? Finally at age, he's not actually now 30. He's not even 29 anymore. I thought he was 29. The guy's old. He's 30. But again, a young 30. Finally, he is being valued properly. It takes this many years. Let's see how many years he's been in the league. He's been in the league 6 years. It took 6 years for fantasy gamers to be disappointed. He had 1 year that we were actually delivered and outperformed, which was 2020. Otherwise, he's under-delivered on his ADP. Now it's all come full circle from 2020. We're right back to a situation where he is ready to be, let's say, at least a top 20 receiver in the league. He was wide receiver 28 last year with Will Levis, for Christ's sake.
Right. And we have plenty of examples of guys that had late starts that played longer, right? Like Adam Thielen is still playing. He had a late start. Delaney Walker, limited usage, played a long time. Travis Kelce he didn't have 1,000-yard season until he was 27 and didn't really do anything until he was like 24, 25. Like, these guys can, Julian Edelman, it really boils down to wear and tear for some of these guys. So he's definitely out there. And when you look at the complaints about Cam Ward, I have no problem with those complaints for fantasy football. Like,
and don't forget, I forgot. I can't forget. Don't let anyone forget. I forgot, but I don't want people to forget. When I was counting the seasons, I forgot. He didn't play in 2020.
He was suspended.
Yeah. He was suspended for a full year. This guy's fresh.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
Another year, he only played 5 games.
Exactly. The complaints and the complaints about Cam Ward that people have are that he plays too much hero ball, that he's too aggressive with his throws. He's trying to throw into tight windows. That's never been a problem for me in fantasy football. Like, when people say, "Oh, what if he's Jameis Winston?" Good. That would be great. That would be awesome. What if he's Ryan Fitzpatrick?
You can't be Will Levis where it's uncatchable.
Right. Exactly.
He's like, it's like, imagine the best case scenario, Will Levis. Like, that's what you're getting with Cam Ward, where he is pushing the ball downfield. He's not tentative, and the balls are a lot more accurate. And you're not allowed to be surprised when Calvin Ridley has like his second best year ever for fantasy football at age 30 on a team that is going to absolutely have to throw the ball. They're going to, in the second half, they're going to be throwing.
Yes. Like, and again, you look at the guys that do that, like, they didn't last forever in the NFL. Some of them did, and they never really won anything. But like, these guys are great for fantasy football. The Baker Mayfields and the Jay Cutlers. Like, if you're just throwing into tight windows and you don't care, and people criticize you for turnovers and stuff, I do not care about that for fantasy football. If you throw a pick six, you get the ball right back. So guys like Ridley, guys in that range, I love those guys a lot. There's
under the radar because the Titans were so bad. He was a big play machine last year. Number 2 in explosive plays.
Yeah, I mean, he's back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons.
Right on Player Profiler. Number 2 in explosive plays, number 9 in explosive play rating.
Now
so this is a guy that has plenty of juice left, and he's way underowned.
So I want to ask you about a guy that's going in the mid wide receiver range. And I went on Player Profiler and I'm looking at his profile, and it said that this particular player last year was a top 10 player in route wins. He was wide receiver 3 in win rate versus man to man. But
Ooh.
his quarterback was not getting through his reads. He was dumping the ball down early. He was scrambling a lot. Mr. Marvin Harrison Jr. Where do you stand on him? Do you think, because again, we're looking for guys that have unique upside that can make those jumps. And keep in mind, everybody, that when we're talking about, people that didn't have an opportunity early on, he did have the opportunity. But we've seen guys like CeeDee Lamb, Jackson Smith and Jigba. These guys struggle. I mean, not necessarily struggle. They didn't quite have the opportunity, but they didn't really blow up till year 2 or 3 when things changed in their favor. Do you think this guy's a value? Other guys going in the range, guys like Devontae Adams potentially. If you don't like him, Marvin Harrison, who are some mid range wide receivers you do like? But I like Marv.
I would rather have Devontae Adams.
I mean, he does have both those guys. In my opinion, both those guys have huge upside. But Adams is a guy that could.
Yeah, I would rather have Adams. I mean, the problem is, I mean, Kyler Murray is not the quarterback you want. Like Kyler Murray is not the most efficient thrower of footballs, and he does siphon out some of these dropbacks end up becoming QB rush attempts. So right there, Marvin Harrison is hurt by that. The coaching staff hasn't changed. If there was some argument that maybe the coaching staff came in and changed and he would be running more out of the slot, they'd be moving him around more, being more creative, then there would be an argument. But what we saw last year was he was wide receiver 30, and a lot of these other efficiency metrics were not good, right? Certainly on a per route basis, yes. Against man coverage, yes, right? But when you look at like the total number of routes, he's very similar defensive strategy against him was used to DK Metcalf, where DK Metcalf also fantastic win rate versus man coverage, but defenses know better than that, right? They bracket him. They know he likes to run the sideline fade, and then so they scheme for that and they take it away, and it's not that hard. The problem with Marvin Harrison Jr. is until they get more creative, I'm worried we're going to see a lot of the same. Like he was number 73 in yards per target. He was, number 58 in yards per route run. And then the target accuracy from Kyler on these throws was 5.8 out of 10, which is 92nd in the NFL. So it was a very difficult situation to deliver him footballs that he could catch and run with, which I think is one of his strengths, and they're not using him properly. They're using him like he's DK Metcalf, and he's not DK Metcalf. He's not that type of receiver. He wasn't that type of receiver at Ohio State, but I think that they see that he's best comparable to like AJ Green on Player Profiler, and they're trying to make him into that AJ Green sideline dominator. And in today's NFL, that's going to be an inefficient player. And defenses are adjusting much faster to players like that. They're making it much harder. They're squeezing those spaces down on the boundary. So unless things radically change, and I can't project, how can we project them to change? There's no information. I actually think no data that tells us, okay, the Cardinals have found Jesus here, and they're going to play him all over the formation.
So I think there is, if you watch a lot of the plays last year, Marv was getting open. I think really what it boils down to is betting that Kyler Murray will get through some of his reads. And if people out there, and I get that people are detractors of him and they don't believe that he can, if you don't think that Kyler Murray can take a step as a quarterback, then definitely be out. And I get that argument for sure. But when you go through and look at it, I mean, defenses were just letting Kyler throw the ball underneath. They were baiting him into dumping it down, and that's why you throw it to Trey McBride 150 times or whatever it was, 140 something times. Like when you watch these plays, Marvin Harrison is getting open at the second level, but Kyler's not getting through his reads to that second level. You watch a guy like Joe Burrow, he will pass up wide open passes to guys like Mike Gesicki because he trusts the plays. He trusts that Jamar Chase and T. Higgins will get open the next level. I think it is possible for them to sit down, because if they saw what I saw, then they're seeing this guy get open. They're seeing their quarterback just not trust the plays and get through the playbook. I feel like they have to try and push that this year. And it could end up being a situation where Kyler just can't do it. And maybe he's just not an NFL quarterback. But I have a hard time when I watching Marvin saying, you know what, this guy isn't getting open. It's just the ball is not getting into him. But you could be right that maybe Kyler just can't do it. Maybe they drafted a piece for, it's like you go out and you have a you have a Mercedes and you go out and you buy, jet ski parts for it. It's like they maybe just didn't get the right pieces for Kyler. But I mean, the guy, he looks good out there, and Kyler just not getting to that part of the play. But I think the way when
this is a Calvin Ridley situation though, because now it's not like you're gaining anything from him failing so badly last year. He was a number 4 pick. He's Marvin Harrison's son. He has that brand equity. Fantasy gamers aren't going anywhere. You want to use a poker analogy? They're going to stick in the pot. They're calling, right? They're not folding Marvin Harrison. Okay. So you're not going to get any kind of value. On Underdog, he's a top 30 player, right? This is a mid 3rd round pick in these traditional best ball drafts. He's going a little bit later on FastDraft for what that's worth. That's interesting, but not that much later, right? For me, if I'm drafting, I'd rather have Davante Adams. The 2 players I think that where the argument is, if you want to look at 3 players, okay? So Zay Flowers, Rashee Rice, Davante Adams, Marvin Harrison Jr., okay? If it's Rashee Rice, I want Rashee Rice because Rashee Rice, very similar player actually to Marvin Harrison Jr., but his quarterback knows how to deliver the football, and they use him as that queen chess piece. They move him all over the formation, and there's a lot of easy catch and throws, yards after the catch. Rashee Rice is set up for success in Kansas City, and I don't see any reason. I think there's a great value there because his ADP is depressed because there's this risk cloud around him that I don't think is real. I think that his injury was not full reconstruction. It happened early in the season, and I don't see him getting suspended this year. It'll get postponed to next year at this point, or it won't happen at all. Davante Adams is just a phenomenal producer, has not slowed down at all, is going back to a consolidated pass-centric offense with a defense that was a lot of smoke and mirrors last year. So I'm back on Davante Adams. And now the question is, okay, of those 4, would you rather have Marvin Harrison or Zay Flowers? And that's where you want to think about upside. In the context of the offense that he operates in, I would rather go Marvin Harrison Jr., just knowing that there's more air yards to go. He's a more of a featured athletic weapon that can make his own fantasy points. He can generate his own fantasy points, as opposed to Zay Flowers, where Zay Flowers is, again, very good at getting separation and getting open. But this is always going to be Lamar and Henry first, and then whoever is receiving passes from Lamar is always going to be secondary, and they're always going to be near the bottom of the league in pass attempts. So the raw upside for Zay Flowers just isn't there based on who he is as a player and the offense he's operating in. So I'd rather have Marvin Harrison than a Zay Flowers, but that's my cutoff. That's my line in the sand. If you're talking to me about Terry McLaurin, you want to talk to me about Rashee Rice, Davante Adams, then I'm going to go with Garrett Wilson. I'm going to go with the guys I know have been super productive for many years, and there's just nothing that would suggest otherwise this year. And then once we get down into, okay, now we're into players that require a little more creativity in order to build the upside case. Okay, then I would put Marvin Harrison Jr. on the top of that stack.
Yeah, because early on you want certainty. Later on, you want to lean into the uncertainty and say, okay, now where can we get upside from? And that's the case for guys like Juwan Jennings as well. While we're talking about Zay Flowers and Marvin Harrison Jr., I wanted to ask you about something because, as you know, I've been pounding the table to you, to Billy Muzio, any of you guys that will listen over there, that I would like a tight end premium format. There is not one just yet. There's not one just yet. So there's no bonus for tight ends, and there's also no positional scarcity for tight ends. So there's no tight end spot, right? There's no. It's just four flexes, 6 players.
Right.
As of now, do you think that? I mean, obviously there are guys that could finish as top 10 flex players. Last year, Brock Bowers was flex player 18, which isn't really going to cut it, and he was the top player. Year before that, I think Sam Laporta wasn't even the top 20 for this type of format. But is there any tight ends that at ADP that you think are viable at all, or is it just a fade again this year? I'm a little worried about that. Some of the ADP from other formats is poisoning the well a bit.
Yeah, Trey McBride, the guy we talked about. For all the reasons we talked earlier, I mean, there's going to be a lot. I mean, the Cardinals didn't draft any receivers, right? So the whole point of this, I think, this Marvin Harrison, the hype machine's not going to stop. Marvin Harrison's going to be a second-round pick by August in these big best ball formats. And FastDraft, we are rolling out a traditional 15-round best ball format where you're going to need to draft at least 2 tight ends in every draft. So, that there's a lot of people that play traditional best ball and they want a new place to play and they want it to be faster. So these drafts will be like 20-minute drafts. So, our commitment at FastDraft is everything we do, even if it's going to be more traditional in quotes, it still has to be fast. We have to be like at least twice as fast as something else, or what else has the legacy platforms. So when we do roll this out, this is coming in the next month or so. This format is going to be live, and then you'll need to draft a couple tight ends. In the current Flex-4 format, like I said, Trey McBride, you just view him like a receiver. He's their second receiver, and he's a smash in all formats. I want him in every format, including Flex-4. Also, David Njoku. David Njoku is the best receiver on the Browns. It's not Jerry Jeudy. Maybe Cedric Tillman takes this big leap forward this year, and it's Cedric Tillman, but it sure as hell ain't Jerry Jeudy. And so Njoku is an interesting pick late in that format. I mean, he is 0.6% owned, but he could go out and have a monster TD season. There's just not a lot of, especially if there's an injury to one of the receivers, to either Jeudy or Tillman, then you could see, especially the touchdown, that really consolidate around David Njoku. So you've seen a few savvy drafters have snagged David Njoku in round 6. Like, for him to be 0.6% owned, he's only been drafted a handful of times. But yeah, I also think that the way Tua has devolved, that Jonnu Smith is going to continue to be a good option in all formats. Probably not enough upside there to justify drafting him. And he has been drafted a few times in Flex-4. I don't see it. I wouldn't do that. But in other formats, Jonnu Smith, especially if Tyreek Hill implodes, which it's
entirely possible.
It's very possible. Very possible. We're talking about a field stretcher in his 30s who has sort of a truculent disposition. Right? And maybe Steve Smith, right? But we're talking about one dude, right? His range of outcomes that are successful are all Deshaun Jacksons and guys that have faded into the night. And there is one guy, Steve Smith, who probably enhanced his body to recover from things like Achilles ruptures and things, and basically made sacrifices for the good of his career that most players are just not willing to do. And you see that. You see that with the guys that play well into their 30s. I mean, Steve Smith was probably like 36, 37 when he retired.
Right.
I mean, the sacrifices you have to be willing to put, I don't know. I don't know Tyreek Hill personally, but when it's a 1 out of whatever 10,000, one guy, the probability that Tyreek Hill is going to pay off this year is so low. He's one of the easier fades. I mean, I think there's a bunch of easy fades this year, but Tyreek Hill certainly is an easy fade. And then that necessarily means that Jonnu Smith becomes very interesting.
Most of the guys that when you talk about, it's either, you either have to have crazy discipline like Steve Smith did, which Tyreek Hill clearly probably the least disciplined guy in the league. I mean, let's be real. He's in the newspaper every other weekend, and it's never for something good. The guys that actually do have longevity usually change the way they play, right? Like Larry Fitzgerald, Anquan Bolden, those guys turned into possession slot guys. You know what I mean? And Tyreek Hill's never going to do that. He's going to be the fastest guy out there, and then he's going to be done. So eventually that could happen. So
I mean, go look at the career arc of Randy Moss.
Yeah, like everyone thought he was done on the Raiders.
A guy that just refused to adapt at all, no versatility.
Yeah.
When he was right and when he was in his prime, he was an unstoppable 2,000-yard receiver. And then at age 31 on the Titans, he was completely useless.
Done. Yeah. Once he wasn't playing with Tom Brady. I mean, he was useless on the Raiders. Like basically he played that, played with Tom Brady for a bit, which was incredible, but he just was not willing to adapt. If you took Jerry Rice's work ethic and put it into Randy Moss, you would have.
Oh, come on now.
You would have it.
Come on,
that would have
now.
been it.
Look at this.
If
Look
Jerry
at this
Rice,
hypothetical you're putting out there,
if Randy Moss was catching the bricks and running the hills, then you would have had the all-time, like the perfect one. That's why we never truly have the perfect one. Jerry Rice, though, with his work ethic, I mean, you never.
I mean, in terms of fades, I think one of the easier fades in fantasy is just, if you just close your eyes and think about where we are mid February 2026. Okay. We're looking back at the NFL season. The Super Bowl just happened. Okay. It's Monday after the Super Bowl. We're looking back, right? And you turn to your buddy and you're like, can you believe people thought that Baker Mayfield was elite? Right.
Right.
And it's certainly possible. And I'm very much here for it. I mean, he has the type of personality. If you saw the behind the scenes documentary that they filmed where he pretended to be just a fan, and then they could throw with the players and everything, and then he got up and he had a wig on and he had a limp, right? And then he's just started like hurting people with how hard he was throwing, and they were like, who the hell is this guy? And he takes the costume off and everyone's like, oh my god, this was Baker all along.
He did an Uncle Drew. I haven't seen that. I gotta check that out.
Oh my god, it's amazing. It's really good. Yeah, it's really good. I didn't think it would be that good. I was like, I should watch this, but I have low expectations. I was like, oh no, this guy is super charming.
Oh yeah,
I love Baker Mayfield.
I love
it. And I remember, I don't know if you remember, he did have that scandal where he had the bus where he parked it in the Target parking lot. Do you remember this?
No, I remember that.
You remember that he had a bus that he would park in the Target parking lot where he would have rendezvous with women.
Oh wow! No, I never heard
it was very
that.
Weird. It was a strange thing, but he had set up this whole system. So that was a scandal that happened in Cleveland. I don't think there was no laws broken or anything.
Right. But it's weird. It's weird. It's like
there being like any accusations. It was just like, oh, this is the thing that he does.
It's a weird thing to do. It's like the LaShawn McCoy thing where he was like, you'd have to send a picture of yourself if you wanted to come to the party, and then he would collect everyone's phones. And it's like you're going way out of your way to be weird here about this kind of stuff. Like, just have a party,
lot of investment.
Just have a house. Why do you have to have
a lot of investment done, and then the parking lot? It's creepy, man. I don't have to tell you.
It's creepy.
So yeah, like a little creep factor going on there. Yeah. Anyway, it like I was sold after that. Right? I'm like, all right, he's not that creepy. He's fine. Yeah. I like this guy. I'm rooting for him, et cetera, et cetera. And then he delivers against a banged up Chargers team, a demoralized Dallas team, a tanking Saints team, a tanking Panthers team, and they go on this run. And then of course he puts up 15 fantasy points in the playoffs when the games mattered again. But this idea that he's this 22 fantasy points per game quarterback and he's going to support all these guys, Bucky Irving and Chris Godwin and Mike Evans and all these guys going top 50. I'm like, I don't know, man. I don't know how this works. Right. That we're getting from point A to point B based on a 6-game sample we're extrapolating from. it's still Baker Mayfield. And so I'm very skeptical. And I'm like, assuming there's any improvement in the NFC South and the schedule is even remotely reasonable in terms of, the defenses are going to have to face and the game environments they're going to be in. I can't draft any of these Buccaneers.
Right. And just think, you got to keep in mind that there are narratives regarding these, like the records and the contracts and stuff. Well, if you watch the certain stretch of games for both the Buccaneers and obviously for the Eagles with Saquon Barkley, it was clear that they could have called different plays, but they were chasing these records. They were appeasing the players. Last year, Baker Mayfield made an extra like $4 million by hitting these certain incentives. And obviously, Mike Evans had the 1,000 yards, big dance, big show. The game was over when they threw him the ball. It's like you have to pay attention to these narratives and these things. Like Tyreek Hill, the year he was going for 2,000 yards, he got hurt doing it, and he came back and said, "We're not going to do that again." Right? So like you got to pay attention to these narratives. Like what the Buccaneers did last year, going crazy with Liam Cohen, who's not even there. I just don't know if they're really going to sit back and say, okay, yeah, this is the best way to play. I worry about that with a lot of these players, that it's like with Trey McBride, it worries me too, because I watch those games and I'm like, you're just the defense is letting you dump it down and you're just doing it over and over and you're going 8-9. Like if they do that again and just dump the ball down a million times and they win 8 or 9 games, at what point do you just say, hey, Drew Petzing, you're fired, and Kyler Murray, you're gone?
Right.
Like,
I mean,
I worry about that with a lot of these players.
This was the case. I mean, the sell of all sells this offseason in Dynasty was Jalen McMillan.
Yeah. Oh my God, yeah. I can't believe he's still getting drafted where he's getting drafted.
It's crazy.
Like, you go
even now, right?
Why are people
even
drafting
all
him
these
all?
Buccaneers? It doesn't make sense. The guy I kind of like now.
Man, I can't even draft Emeka Egbuka. Why in the world would I draft Jalen McMillan?
Well, I kind of like Egbuka. I mean, but you can't get him in Dynasty, really. I mean,
in Dynasty, I like him. In Dynasty, I like him, but in redraft,
I mean,
kind of a tough spot.
Let's see what is his redraft ADP? Egbuka. Oh my God,
too early.
What?
Too early, dude.
What? Egbuka on Underdog is going 78 overall.
That's what I'm saying.
What?
Dude, look where McMillan's going. He's going before when
you add it all up, it makes no sense.
No sense.
It is the nonsense thing. Remember last year, the Texans receivers?
Yeah.
And you looked at all the Texans receivers and you were like Tank Dell and Collins and Diggs, and you added it up, and then you actually what kind of numbers would Stroud have to put up to support all these ADPs? And he'd have to throw for like 7,000 yards.
2013 Peyton Manning. That's literally, he would have to throw 55 touchdowns. I was looking at the same thing. Same thing with the Packers too. I was like, this is the math ain't mathing. And then you flip it around.
So the Buccaneers math doesn't make sense. The ADP math around the Buccaneers is just nonsense. And that's if we knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that the guy that was mediocre to bad for 6 straight seasons was actually a total stud.
Yeah, I like to flip it the other way. I look at it and I'm like, okay, Puka Nacua is going in the first round, and Devontae Adams going in the third round, and we like him there. So why is Matthew Stafford the QB 25? Right? It's like the people aren't doing the arbitrage on these quarterbacks on both sides.
Who's going to outscore? Do you think Baker Mayfield outscores Matt Stafford? I think it's going to be hard for him to do that.
Well, Mayfield goes QB 7 and Stafford goes QB 25.
Well, so historically, Stafford's been like a 17 fantasy points per game quarterback. Historically, Baker Mayfield's been in the 15s every year, except last year. So I mean, if it were for my life, I would be like, no, I'm going to go with Matt Stafford. I mean, it's a better situation. You know they're going to have to throw, given their division, given their defense. Again, that is a smoke and mirrors defense. Okay, if we've ever seen one, look at the total draft capital in that defense. I mean, I know they've had some hits in the later rounds, but I mean, it's bad. Okay, they're gonna have to be throwing. And so, yeah, they're going to go right back to Matthew Stafford. It's not like Baker Mayfield is this super scrambler. I know he did some more scrambling, above expectation for sure last year. But, I mean, come on, man. There's just no way. Again, love this guy. Very charming. Highly recommend Behind the Scenes, where he pretends to be a fan. And breaks the hands of receivers. But 41 touchdowns, 378 rushing yards, 3 rushing touchdowns, a 71+% completion percentage. It's all just complete silliness. Yeah. He was the QB 17 the year prior with the exact same number of pass attempts.
It's time. It's obviously going to regress to normal. So, folks out there, all right, let's get you out of here, man. If you guys are not set up with FastDraft yet, we actually reached out this year. We didn't have it last year. This year we reached out. We had to get a deal going because I love the product. It's fantasyalarm.com/FastDraft. Use promo code ALARM, ALARM. Give you 100% of your deposit, up to $50. Get in there, get started now. I'm having a blast with it. Make sure you set up. I always set up my rankings.
Think about it. Let's say you deposit 50, right? Then you get another 50. Now you have 100. Okay, and these are $5 drafts. You could do 20 drafts.
I'm ripping them, and I'll tell you,
you're in line to pick up your kid. Let's see. Most days, do most of us have let's say 5 to 10 minutes where we're just sitting around not doing anything? Yeah,
easy one.
At least once every day we have that. And then there's other situations where you're just, man.
I tell you,
but now
I used to. My wife used to always. She'd always go, "Oh, do you want to drive? You want me to drive?" I'd always say I drive. Now I'm like, well, maybe you drive. I'm like, how far are we going? 15 minutes. All right, maybe you drive because I'm doing sneaking a little quick fast draft action. And I'll tell you, folks, if you do 5 of these, and while you're doing it, go through and set your figure out your rankings. You do about 5 of them, you can set your rankings because it's only the top 60 or so players, right? I've set mine, and now I do a lot of them live. I did one the other day, and I saw why it was in there. But you can do turbo and just kind of set your rankings and kind of build your things out, go in there after and change the multipliers. That's what I've been doing to really build a portfolio.
Yeah, and because there's no position restrictions, it's pretty much you just want to go off your rankings.
Yeah,
it's really that easy, and the rankings really easy to slide up and down and modify. So yeah, we're at that point, man, where I think most people in May, they're not ready to really parse out like who is going to be the number 3 receiver in Pittsburgh, right? No one even wants to think about it right now.
I don't even know who the number 2 is going to be for sure.
Well, we don't. Yeah, I mean, it's just a tough thing, right?
It's a mess.
New England situation, all these things, camp and all that. It's like very difficult, right? So best ball is kind of hard right now. But what you can do is kind of figure out the 70 guys you might want to draft in like a 6. If it was 6 guys, and then if you're focused on that area, right? So what I like about the order of events is I'm going to start doing these 6-man drafts now, and start to work that muscle in May. That's reasonable, and then I can work up, and then by the time I get to August, I know these depth charts. I know where I'm going. I can draft out to 15 rounds, 20 rounds, and I can feel comfortable.
I mean, I do this professionally for work, and every time in the 18th round of underdog draft, I'm like, Jesus Christ. Like, how am I supposed to pick the right player from this mess of literally just who knows? We don't even know who the starting quarterback is going to be for some of these teams. So, yes, I think now is the time to jump in and get some fast draft going. Is there anything you wanted to plug besides fast draft? Anything you got coming up? I know you and me are going to be doing a little show over on the Mind the Mansion. On your side of things, but what else you got popping? What you got going on?
Yeah, man, you can follow me at fantasy_mansion on Twitter X, and we have a podcast. So if you're interested in checking out the podcast, just type in Player Profiler Network or Player Profiler Podcast, and there I do an interview show every week. I have a salary cap and sort of a front office show I do with Anand Nanduri, who worked for the NFL, where we kind of break down the fantasy impact of contract extensions and trades and all those things. And then we have a dynasty show called The Sonic Truth that I do with Cody Carpentier. And then we have a bunch of other shows on that channel as well. So yeah, now is the time to start digging in and listening to more podcasts. And I think our podcast is a good one to add to the rotation.
For sure. And just saying a bunch of other shows, kind of underselling it, man. You got Jax over there. You got Jagger. You got Chuck Bass, who I love, man. You got a good crew, dude. So,
oh, yeah.
Keep on rocking. Folks out there, thank you so much for joining the chat. Thank you so much for watching the show. Like, subscribe, and remember, if you want to play Fast Draft right now, go download the app. Use promo code ALARM. They'll give you 100% of your deposit up to $50, so you can get up to $100 total with those bonus credits. So get in there, get drafted now. Thank you guys for tuning in. We'll catch you.